Hi everybody, welcome to History Doodles. My name is Mitch. Today we're going to be talking about the formation of ancient Egypt, the building of the pyramids, and the collapse of the Old Kingdom. So without further ado, let's get into it. Along the narrow stretch of land within a short distance of the Nile River, people had been living in small kingdoms for thousands of years. And then around the time 3100 BCE, a man named Menes comes along, and he has a bold vision of uniting the people from the upper part of the Nile down to the lower part of the Nile, which enters the Mediterranean. Not a ton is known about Menes, so I'll start there. But what Egyptologists do know come from engravings on stone, like the Narmer palette seen here, which some person at some point found, and it depicts Menes taking the name Narmer, which must have been more kingly, and it coincided with the time he went from being the king of just Upper Egypt, where he was from, to controlling Upper and Lower Egypt. The surviving depictions of this unification process are super violent. The historian and Egyptologist Toby Wilkinson describes it here as Narmer not only defeated his adversaries, but dealt with them in utter humiliation. He is shown inspecting rows of decapitated bodies that have added the added indignity of having their genitals cut off. Only one of the dead has been allowed to retain his manhood. So Narmer was brutal, and he went on to rule this new empire that he formed for 60 years. And since this story is before Egyptians used written language, we don't have a ton of information past this point. So what we do know comes from ancient historians that wrote he was, killed or carried away by a hippo. Don't know if that's true, but it is pretty awesome. Narmer and all of his descendants would mark the first dynasty of Egypt. In total, there'd be 33, depending on how you count them. But they would span a time range of 3,000 years. And a high point for this incredibly long-running empire is what's called the Old Kingdom. And it's the period of Egyptian history starting around the time of the Third Dynasty. The Old Kingdom's most known for its incredible pyramid building. This type of monument building started with a man named Imhotep, who was a brilliant civil engineer, and he was serving the king at the time. Before him, kings were buried in these structures called mastabas, which were large rectangular buildings that they used to, house the king's remains. They were made from clay bricks. Since Egyptians thought that they could carry all their things to the afterlife with them, it's very important to have a good burial situation. So they all wanted to take Imhotep's idea a bit further and stack these mastabas on top of each other, and would start building them out of more solid material like limestone. Imhotep died, but his idea was beloved by all the kings who followed, and they would build bigger and bigger pyramids to take them into the afterlife. This competition reached its apex under a king named Sneferu, who got thousands of workers to build a pyramid that required 2.3 million blocks of limestone to build. His workers gathered the limestone from far away down the Nile, and then transported these blocks, which weighed as much as a car, and perfectly cut and placed them. The result of all that hard work would be the Great Pyramid of Giza, which still stands today 4,000 years later at 455 feet tall. It's so big, it was the largest man-made structure on Earth until 1889 AD, when the Eiffel Tower was built. The Old Kingdom would continue to thrive for hundreds of years, and it would enter a golden age between the 3rd and 6th dynasty. But over time, things started to come undone, and the last king of the Old Kingdom was a young man named Pepi II, who became king when he was only 6 years old. Obviously, Pepi would not be able to make all important day-to-day decisions when he was a young boy. So his mother and all of his other relatives ran a lot of the day-to-day for the empire, which ended up being kind of a problem later on when they were, tasked with so many things and got all this power, so it got decentralized a bit. Anyway, on some occasions, young Pepi intervened, and since Egyptian kings were recognized by the population to be gods or basically gods, people listened. So anyway, when Pepi was a young man, he received correspondence from one of the members of the government, a man named Harkuf. And Harkuf was sent on an expedition in the previous administration to go to the south of the empire and gather intelligence and explore the uppermost regions of the Nile. Harkuf sent back some information about the expedition to the king, and it was about, the people that live there, their government, and at one point he mentioned, a group of very small people, which might have been African pygmies. We don't know. But anyway, that they were living in the area. And young Pepi heard about the pygmies and got super excited. Ignoring pretty much everything else Harkuf said, he demanded that Harkuf bring him a pygmy so that it could perform some sort of ritual dance for him at the throne in Memphis. Pepi's reign would somehow last 60 years, and his absence and bad decision-making continued to decay the power of the Egyptian dynasty. That, combined with a famine, which was devastating to agriculture at the time, Pepi died around 2200 BC, and the kingdom was totally falling apart. To make matters worse, Pepi left no obvious heir, so when he died, all the people that had claims to the throne fought with each other to try to become the next king. Egypt would remain in turmoil for hundreds of years after this point, but their spectacular monuments, intricate religion, and political structure would leave an impact for the rest of history. We'll pick back up on the next iteration of Egyptian prominence in the next episode. So until then, thanks for watching.